Welcome back to All About Winning Daily Fantasy Sports. My name is Ty Patton. In this video, I will break down my research and strategy for the quarterback position in Week 7 of the NFL. Before I dive into the numbers and what they tell us, I wanted to add a quick disclaimer to remind people that nothing is a lock or a guarantee when it comes to DFS. But we look for those tidbits of information to give us a perceived advantage. I do truly believe that doing research does give you an advantage compared to someone who doesn't. So far in the 2019 season, I have had 2 weeks, weeks 2 and 6, where I had the player pool needed to build a lineup that would outscore the winner of the Millie Maker on Draftkings by double digits. It's always easy on Monday to build that lineup that would have, could have, should have. Now let's get down to business and find the quarterbacks we need to target for DFS lineups in Week 7. When I look at each position, I want to look for the information that I feel is fantasy relevant. And the best way for me to do that is to first look at the game lines and totals. I'm looking for the games with the highest totals because those are going to be the games with the players necessary to score those points. With that being said, these are the game totals for Week 7 of the NFL. Excuse me. A quick reminder, there are 11 games on the main slate. I build lineups primarily for the main slate, which means I don't have the primetime games, the Thursday night, Sunday night, or Monday night. And this week in particular, there are 4 teams on a bye: Carolina, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, and Tampa Bay. The primetime games are Kansas City at Denver Thursday night, Philly at Dallas on Sunday night, and New England at the Jets on Monday night. The following are the lines and totals for the main slate. The Rams are at Atlanta. The Rams have been installed as a 3-point favorite. The game total was the highest on the board, 54 points. Baltimore Ravens visit Seattle. Seattle's a 3.5-point favorite. The game total is 49.5 points. Arizona at the Giants. The Giants are a 3-point favorite. The game total is 49 points. Houston at Indy. Indianapolis is a 1-point favorite, and the game total is 48 points. Oakland visits Green Bay. Green Bay is a 6-point favorite, and the game total is 47 points. Minnesota is at Detroit. Minnesota is a 1-point favorite, and the game total is 45 points. Jacksonville visits Cincinnati. Jacksonville is a 3.5-point favorite, and the game total is 43.5 points. San Fran at Washington. San Fran's a 10-point road favorite. Game totals 41.5 points. Miami is at Buffalo. Buffalo is a 17-point home favorite with a game total of 40. The Chargers are at Tennessee. Tennessee is a 2-point favorite. The game total is 40. And last, New Orleans is at Chicago. Chicago's a 3-point favorite, and the game total is 38 points. Rams at Atlanta, 54. Baltimore at Seattle, 49.5. Arizona at the Giants, 49. Houston at Indy, 48. And Oakland at Green Bay, 47. Obviously, these are the games I want to target first, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to consider players from the other games. This is just where I want to start. The quarterbacks in those games are as follows: Jared Goff at Matt Ryan, Lamar Jackson at Russell Wilson, Murray at Jones in the battle of the rookies, Deshaun Watson at Jacoby Brissett, and Derek Carr at Aaron Rodgers. Now let's look into the numbers and see what these numbers tell us. Actually, let's look into the numbers that are fantasy relevant. The quarterbacks through the first 6 weeks with the most pass attempts are the following. Matt Ryan leads the way with 258 pass attempts. He's thrown an average of 43 passes a game. Jared Goff is right behind him with 246 pass attempts, 41 a game. Andy Dalton, 243 pass attempts for 40.5 pass attempts per game. Number 4 is Murray from Arizona with 238 pass attempts, comes out to 39.67 per game. And Phillip Rivers is number 5. He's thrown 238 passes as well for 39.67 per game. I feel that that's a very important number to show the quarterbacks that are throwing the ball a lot compared to running the ball. Obviously, you want the quarterbacks that are more efficient, and we'll get to that. But knowing which ones that are throwing the ball a lot is a good way to start. And looking at this, and then we just talked about the game totals. The highest total on the board is 54, and the two quarterbacks in that game are also the two quarterbacks that lead the way in pass attempts. Ryan for Atlanta, who's thrown it 43 times a game, and Goff from the Rams, who's thrown it 41 times a game. So between the two, that's 84 passes in a game. So that's something to remember moving forward. The leaders in yards passing are as follows. Matt Ryan leads the way with 2,011 yards. That's 335 yards a game. That's really important, especially on Draftkings. He's averaging above what the bonus is. The bonus is at 300 yards. You get the extra 3 points. Doesn't sound much, but in a really tight contest, GPP head-to-head, double up. If the cutoff line at 3 points could be a lot. He's actually averaging over the 300. Phillip Rivers is second with 1,785 total yards. Comes out to just under 300, 297.5 yards per game. Jared Goff is number 3 with 1,727 yards. Comes out to 287.83 yards a game. Russell Wilson's number 4 with 1,704 yards. That comes out to 284 yards a game. And Murray is number 5. He's thrown for 1,664 yards, which comes out to 277 yards a game. As I mentioned, efficiency is really important, and one way that you can measure efficiency is by looking at the top completion percentages and see if they match up with the pass attempts, or if there's a couple quarterbacks that are in both areas. Leading the way in completion percentage right now is Carr from Oakland with 73.3%. Next is Russell Wilson, 72.5%. So there you have Wilson's number 2 in completion percentage, and he's number 4 in total yards. So that's points you in the direction of he's really efficient, and it'll probably show up in the quarterback rating when we get to that statistic. Matt Ryan's number 3. He's thrown the most pass attempts. He's got leading the way in passing yards, and he's got the third highest completion percentage, 72.1%. He will definitely be a target. I'll just let you know before we get there. Garoppolo is 69.9% completion percentage, and number 5 is Deshaun Watson, who has a 65% completion percentage. The quarterback rating factors all the relevant statistics, including touchdowns. The following quarterbacks have the highest rating through the first 6 weeks. Russell Wilson, we just talked about it, leads the way with a 124.7 quarterback rating. Number 2 is Kirk Cousins with a 108.4 quarterback rating. Now, he doesn't throw the ball as much as the others, but he's really efficient. Number 2 in quarterback rating. Number 3 is Deshaun Watson with a 107.9 quarterback rating. Number 4, here he is again, Matt Ryan, 102.7 quarterback rating. And number 5 is Matt Stafford with a 99.7 quarterback rating. Touchdowns have so much variance, but these quarterbacks have had the most red zone attempts. Like I said, it's really hard to project touchdowns or depend on touchdowns, but you can look at numbers that can give you an edge in selecting the right quarterback. And these are the quarterbacks that have had the most pass attempts in the red zone. Aaron Rodgers is number 1. He's had 37 attempts inside the 20-yard line. 17 of those have been inside the 10. Murray is number 2. He's had 35 inside the 20. 18 of those 35 have been inside the 10-yard line. Russell Wilson's had 34, and 14 of those were inside the 10. Philip Rivers has had 31. 16 of those have been inside the 10. And Matt Ryan's had 30 attempts inside the red zone, and 13 of those 30 have been inside the 10-yard line. The following quarterbacks are averaging the most fantasy points per game. Lamar Jackson, 27.7 fantasy points per game. So remember, Lamar Jackson has a rushing floor and a passing floor. So he's kind of got the combination going, and he's leading the way right now with 27.7 fantasy points per game. Number 2 is Matt Ryan, 27.4 fantasy points per game, 0.3 behind Lamar Jackson. Deshaun Watson, 27.2 fantasy points per game. Russell Wilson, 27 fantasy points per game. And Murray, 23.2 fantasy points per game. Likewise, one thing that you want to look at are defenses that are giving up the most fantasy points per game, and you also want to look at the defenses that are not giving up a lot of fantasy points per game. So this gives us a little bit of information to cross-reference. We've already identified some of the top quarterbacks in various areas that are fantasy relevant. So now we want to look at the individual matchups, and these are the defenses that are giving up the most yards per game, or not the most yards, the most fantasy points per game to the quarterback position through the first 6 weeks. Number 1, Atlanta. They're giving up 26.4 points per game to the quarterback position. This week they faced Jared Goff. So that makes sense why Ryan is probably throwing the most passes, because his defense is giving up a lot of points and he's having to throw the ball to keep up. But Ryan and Goff play each other this week, and as I mentioned, Atlanta's giving up 26.4 fantasy points per game. This week they face Jared Goff. Number 2 is Arizona. They're giving up 26.3 fantasy points per game. This week they face the rookie from the Giants, Daniel Jones. Number 3, the Miami Dolphins. They're giving up 26.2 fantasy points per game. This week they get Josh Allen in Buffalo. Number 4, the New York Giants. They're giving up 23.8 points per game. This week they get Murray. So Murray and Jones are in the top 5 as far as facing the bottom 5 defenses. And number 5, Houston's giving up 22.9 points per game. And this week they face Jacoby Brissett in Indianapolis. Now, these are the defenses that are giving up the least amount of points per game to the quarterback position. These might be the quarterbacks that you might want to steer away from, or at least look at who these defenses have faced. I mean, a lot of this has to do with schedule and who they've played, but this can give you an indication of the defenses that are giving quarterbacks some problems, or it just means that their defense is getting shredded by passing game or rushing game. Number 1 is San Francisco. They are only allowing 10.3 points per game to the quarterback. This week they get Case Keenum in Washington. Number 2, Buffalo. They're allowing 11.3 points per game to the quarterback. This week they get Ryan Fitzpatrick from Miami. Number 3 is Chicago. They're allowing 13.3 points per game to the quarterback. This week they get Teddy Bridgewater in New Orleans. It's in Chicago. They're playing New Orleans. Number 4 is Green Bay. They're allowing 14.8 points per game to the quarterback. This week they get Derek Carr. And number 5 is Tennessee. They're allowing 15.5 points per game to the quarterback. This week they get Philip Rivers. Taking all this information and putting it together allows me to identify the quarterbacks that I want to target. And the following is the list of quarterbacks that from all this information I didn't expect you to write all that down or memorize those numbers. I just wanted you to know the numbers that I'm going to use to create my player pool of quarterbacks. These are the quarterbacks that I'm going to be targeting, and I'm going to tell you why using the numbers that I've already told you. In no certain order, but number one is Goff. His salary is $6,200. He's in the highest total game on the board at 54 points. He's averaging 41 points pass attempts a game, 287 yards passing a game. Atlanta's giving up 26.4 fantasy points per game to the quarterback, which is the most. So definitely going to have Jared Goff player pool. And Gurley could possibly be out again. So you could, and if Ryan is putting some points on the board, you could see a potential shootout. And Vegas obviously thinks it's going to be a shootout too, with that being the highest total on the board. And the winning millie makers on Draftkings have had the last few weeks have been coming from the quarterbacks, and those lineups have been coming from either the number one or the number two highest total game on the board. Number two, Matt Ryan. He's $6,300, just $100 more than Goff. Again, he's playing in the game that has the highest total on the board at 54 points. He's a home underdog. I like home underdogs. I like underdog quarterbacks. Favorite teams, I kind of like lean towards the running game. Underdogs, I kind of like the quarterbacks. But he's a home underdog, and I really like that as far as a quarterback. He's averaging the most pass attempts per game at 43 attempts per game. He's averaging the most passing yards per game at 335 passing yards per game. Remember, at 300 yards on DraftKings, you get the 3-point bonus. He has a 72% completion percentage. He has a 102.7 quarterback rating. He's had 30 red zone passes through the first 6 games, and he's averaging 27.4 fantasy points per game, which is second. Number 3 is Josh Allen. He's $6,500. I'm not really crazy about the price for Josh Allen because I can spend 200 less and get Ryan, or 300 less and get Goff. So I'm not really crazy. I understand why he is at that price because they're playing Miami, but I probably am going to go for the value, go for one of those quarterbacks with the in the highest total game. But anyhow, he could be a nice pivot off of Ryan and Goff if they have a really high ownership. You can see a situation where he would be a nice pivot off of those two. Miami's allowing 26.2 fantasy points per game to the quarterback. He's 200 there. He's getting 274 passing yards a game. Miami in the last 2 games that Josh Allen has played against Miami, he's averaged 37 fantasy points per game. The 2 games in 2018, he put up 2 really big games against them. And he's also averaging right now 30 rushing yards per game. So he's like Lamar Jackson. He gives you that rushing upside along with the passing. He's a big home favorite at 17 points. Not sure how much he's going to need to pass. Their defense is real scary. And if they get a defensive touchdown and they control the game with Singletary and Gore, and at his price to get value, you need to get over 20 points, and I don't know if he gets there. And it could be a game where he throws a couple bombs to Brown and gets a lot of points that way and adds some rushing yards. But I really just don't like that price. But I could see where he could be a contrarian move. I will tell you that some of the talk that I've already heard, though, there's a lot of people that like Josh Allen based solely on the matchup. Next is Russell Wilson. He's $6,600. He's averaging 29.4 fantasy points per game the last 4 games. He has the highest quarterback rating right now at 124.7. He's had 34 red zone pass attempts. He's averaging 27 fantasy points per game for the season. He's averaging 284 passing yards per game. And he's number 2 in efficiency at 72.5%. He's at home favorite. Baltimore is giving up a lot in the passing game. They're not the defense of old. So to see a situation with Russell Wilson at home putting up some points against Baltimore. Number 5 is Murray from Arizona. Now, he's the most expensive out of that group. He's the third most expensive between behind Watson and Jackson, and he's averaging 23.2 fantasy points per game. The Giants are giving up 23.8 points per game, so they're giving up his average. You can see him getting right around that average. He's had this second most pass attempts inside the red zone at 30 with 35. He's had 18 inside the 10. He's averaging 39.67 pass attempts per game. But I'm not sure that I go here with a rookie on the road. I mean, I understand the Giants have given up a lot of points to the quarterback position. Just with him being at $6,700, and then I see Ryan and Goff back there with, 400 or 500 less in a game with a higher total. I just he could be like Allen. He could be a contrarian move if the ownership is going to Goff and Ryan or up to Watson and Jackson. He could be a contrarian with low ownership, but I probably the rookie on the road. He did have a really good game. Let me just look here. I know he had a really good game against Cincinnati, but everybody's had a good game against Cincinnati. At Cincinnati, he scored 25.42 fantasy points. He had 253 yards passing and 93 yards rushing. The rushing touchdown, no passing touchdowns, but I'm just at Baltimore, he scored 19 points. I just don't see that he's going to be a phenomenal play. Barkley is supposed to be back for the Giants this week. Not sure that the Giants want to get into a shootout. He's viable. I just feel like I look for value at every position, and 6,700. I need for him to at least get his average. I just don't know if it's there. The matchup on paper is good. Giants give up a lot of points per game to the quarterback position, but I just feel like there's more value in other places. Now, I always like to have one spin down option. The quarterbacks that I like this week are between 6,200 and 6,700. But the one that's lowest that I kind of like is Jacoby Brissett at 5,600. Houston allows 22.9 fantasy points per game. Indy has a 24.5 point implied game total at home with a game total of 48 points. A healthy T.Y. Hilton. Houston's given up some passing yards, and I just feel like Brissett could go overlooked and definitely under-owned and be a real sneaky play this week. So he's going to be one of my spin downs, and I'll have him in a few lineups. As I mentioned, my quarterback targets range from 6,200 to 6,700, with exception to my value play of Jacoby Brissett at 5,600. As we dig deeper into the research this week, I will also identify targets to stack with these quarterbacks, especially in GPP tournaments. I feel that you definitely have to stack last week's winner in the Millie Maker. Had a two player mini stack. We stacked Ryan and Hooper. But I definitely like to stack, and I like to stack in head to head, smaller cash games, double ups. I like to stack a quarterback with at least one target. There's a couple quarterbacks that you can run out there with a target without a target, like Jackson or Allen, but I still like to find at least one target. In cash games, though, um, those are actually I'm less likely to do it in a smaller cash game, because if you have a couple receivers stacked up and the quarterback goes bomb, well, if the quarterback goes bomb, then so does the wide receivers. So now you've knocked out 2 or 3 players in a cash lineup. So just want to clarify that. I do like, and as I mentioned, I do like the underdog quarterbacks, especially home underdog quarterbacks. And one that's really standing out to me this week is Matt Ryan. So summing this up, the quarterbacks I will be targeting are Goff, Ryan, Josh Allen, Russell Wilson, Murray, and value quarterback Jacoby Brissett. I want to thank you for joining me, and I encourage you to drop any comments or opinions that you may have below. Please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you get notified when my next video posts. I'll be doing the Thursday Night Football Showdown video after this one, and then tomorrow I will have a running back video and a wide receiver video for week 7. As I mentioned, the Sunday night or the Thursday night showdown video will be coming up right after this one. And again, please drop any comments. Really want to make this channel grow. And I've spoken to a few people and can get some really good insight. And it's nice to hear other people's opinions. And if you like or dislike something, by all means, let me know. Again, my name is Ty Patton. This is all about winning daily fantasy sports, and I'll talk to you real soon. Thanks a lot.